All right, everyone. All right, it is that time. It's that time once again for another edition of Maryland's Cafe Society Radio right here on the YouTube channel. Well, how are you on this Tuesday? It's September 27th, 2022. Can't believe that I'm saying that. Where did the month go? Well, anyway, welcome again to the show. And what's happening with you? What's going on? What have you been up to? I tell you, I have been enjoying these cooler temps. I enjoy summer, but when things start to cool off a little bit, I enjoy that as well. And so here in the Chicagoland area, we've been having temperatures in the 60s. I think maybe we hit 70 in the last week or so, but I do have to say at night it gets a little chilly. Very tempted to turn the furnace on, but not just yet, not just yet. And so, among other things, I call this baking season. Yes, when we turn on the ovens and we let the baking of the cakes and the pies and the cookies and meatloaf, lasagna, all those hearty dishes begin, right? Of course, in moderation, because we do want to stay healthy. But you know what I'm saying. And so I am excited to. I think I'm going to do some cookies before I get into the cakes and pies. I'll save that for the holidays, but maybe I'll bake some cookies and share it on the social media now that, again, the temperatures are cooling off and it's okay to have the oven on in the house. That is, if you live in the Midwest and you're experiencing this change of the seasons. All right. And so anyway, we do have a great show in store for you. And of course, I'll get the cafe talk out there so that you can be thinking about it and maybe chime in the comment section of the video or on the social media. And so the cafe talk today is, what is your it? What is your it? And of course, this is a carry on from my Monday email as well as the blog that is now posted on WordPress, Maryland's Cafe Society on WordPress. And so we'll talk a little bit more about it before we get out of here today. But for now, let's get into some cafe news and just a couple of headlines, some stories that caught my attention. And one of them is about the 500, or I should say the 400 billion. The 400 billion. Do you know what I'm speaking of? Well, it's how much President Biden's student loan cancellation plan will cost the government over the next 10 years. And of course, this is according to a recent report from the nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office. Yeah, they're saying that the 400 billion does not include the additional 20 billion in costs for extending the freeze on student loan repayments for one more time. And so the plan will cancel 10,000 in student debt for borrowers who make less than 125,000 a year, and it will cancel 20,000 for those who have received Pell grants. And so more than 40 million Americans is expected to have at least some of their student debt canceled. And so many people have been praying for this and wanting this. And President Biden is, of course, trying to keep one of his campaign promises. And this plan, of course, does not come without some criticism, not only from the left, or the right, I should say, but also from the left. And so the Democrats are criticizing it because they're thinking that it doesn't do enough. It doesn't go far enough. They believe that in addition to the 10,000 or the 20,000 in some cases, that the student loan, the interest on the student loan debt should also be included in this plan, canceling the interest, because as we all know, interest capitalizes. And my goodness, I know so many who are complaining about the interest that continues to accumulate on their student loans, even if they go into forbearance or, some of the other plans that kind of delay repayment. So, yeah, the Democrats are believing that the interest should also be forgiven. Now, Republicans are complaining or criticizing that the plan is just a misuse of government money, and they believe that it's only going to accelerate inflation, make things worse with the economy. So, the big question is who's right in all of this, and of course, it remains to be seen. So stay tuned, everybody. We'll continue to follow this and see how things develop. All right, and so you heard that NASA pulled off that victory last night. Yeah, by of course ramming a spacecraft into an asteroid that, it's guesstimated about 7 million miles away. And of course, it was a test to see whether it could successfully redirect a space rock that may pose a threat to Earth. And so there was this article written, I believe on the Huffington Post, that kind of, shared a little bit more detail about all of this. And so this spacecraft, and they gave it a name, they named it DART, was plowed or sent into this asteroid at 14,000 miles per hour. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine just, you even being a mile away, depending on your stamina, and just starting to run towards something that's probably 1,000 times your size to kind of push it, move it a little bit. So I don't know about you, but from what I saw in the video, it looked like this thing. You know how when you run up against something that's way bigger than you tend to hit it and then bounce off of it, right? And that didn't happen with this spacecraft that they sent plowing into the asteroid. What happened was it exploded. It broke into pieces. And in my mind, it didn't look like things went so well, but according to others involved, it was successful because they believe that the hit was just enough to redirect the asteroid away from the Earth. And that was the whole goal in all of this. Now, they're saying that the target, this asteroid, was about 525 feet in size, and its name was Dimorphos. And now they're saying it could take anywhere from a few days to maybe even a month for all the telescopes from all around the world that was watching this to verify whether or not the asteroid was in fact pushed ever so slightly into a new orbit away from Earth. And of course, again, this was a test run just to prepare, for possible future situations where asteroid may actually, in fact, be headed towards Earth, and whether or not they can send these spacecrafts at it to hit it and push it back away from Earth. And of course, the goal is to save the planet and all of those of us who live on the planet. That whole theory is that, when folks say, well, what happened to the dinosaurs? The whole theory is that millions and millions and millions of years ago, when the dinosaurs were walking the earth, what happened with them is that an asteroid hit the earth and wiped them all out. And so, yeah. And so, of course, we don't want that to happen with us, right? And so, NASA and all of the scientists around the world are trying to come up with ways to protect planet Earth and human life. Should, in fact, they get wind that a huge asteroid is heading towards the planet, and we would have, this technology, these spacecrafts already situated to target the asteroid and hit it with a force that could, again, veer it away from Earth. And so we'll see. We'll see. I'm hoping that it was successful and was a victory. And, of course, we'll be prepared for anything that could happen in the future. All right. All right. And so, last but not least, and you guys have been hearing about this, and of course, we're all on the storm watch. And of course, I'm talking about Hurricane Ian. Yes, we're all tracking it. We're all watching or listening for, news developments. But the latest news is saying that it continues to grow in strength and could hit Florida's Gulf Coast by Wednesday as a Category 4 hurricane. And, what that means is that the winds could top off at 140 miles per hour. Now, listen, they're saying it would be the first time in more than 100 years that the Tampa and St. Petersburg communities have been hit by a major hurricane. And that is, of course, if this Ian, right now, I think it's a tropical storm because it's still out. Well, let me see. They did say that it hit one of the islands or ever so slightly hit one of the islands. So I guess when it hits inland or moves inland to land, it becomes a hurricane. And while it's still out at sea in the water, it's a tropical storm. Anyway, by all accounts, every outlet that I've been watching or listening to has been referencing it as a hurricane, and I guess that is because it has hit some of the islands as it's approaching Florida's Gulf Coast. And so, anyway, my goodness, folks are evacuating. I am on some of the social media, or have been on some of the social media, and have been seeing some folks post that they're out of there, that they're, putting up the plywood or whatever they do to protect windows and their homes and everything, and they're packing up and they are gone. And then some of them are staying. And so, you've seen the footage of them preparing with the sandbags and all of that. Power crews, from around the country are headed to Florida to, be on standby so that if and when they lose power in the Gulf Coast area of Florida, they will be on deck all ready to try to help them get the power restored. And so we'll stand by. We'll keep watching it and see if it, simmers down, or if it's just going to continue to gain momentum, I should say, and do the damage that they're expecting it to do. One of the reports that I heard said that it's not going, once it hits the Gulf Coast area of Florida, it's not going to continue to move, that it's actually going to stop and kind of simmer a little bit, which is why there's such a big concern. How most of the storms, as they travel, they continue with the movement. But I heard one report say that once it hits that area inland, it's going to sort of marinate and stay and sit for a while before it continues to move on. And that's the scary part. So we'll keep an eye on it. And next week when we come back, we'll be talking about, hopefully, how little damage was done. All right. And so moving right along, let's jump into some In other news, everyone, and so I've been meaning to talk about this and um, just didn't put it in previous shows, but I'm sure that you guys heard that Grammy Award winning jazz pianist, composer, and of course, Chicago native Ramsey Lewis passed away on September 12th. He died peacefully at home and he was 87 years young, and of course, leaves to cherish his wife and five children, or five of his children, to cherish his memories. Now, Ramsey Lewis was a guest here on the Cafe Society. For those who've been with me for all of these years, you may have caught the show when he was on, but he was on the show and we spent some time talking. But prior to him being a guest on the show, I actually met him in the late 90s, early 2000s when I worked for the Chicago Music Awards. And of course, he was a nominee and received awards and all of that as a result. But anyway, he talked about his journey, his journey to his musical success, and shared it with me. And of course, what he said was that he had started learning piano, but it wasn't until a musician at his church approached him about starting a jazz band, and that's when he started to begin to study jazz piano. He was about 15 years old, and of course, that experience eventually led him to form another band, his own band that was called the Ramsey Lewis Trio. Joining him in that was bassist Eddie Young, and Red Holt was the percussion. And of course, their debut album was released in 1956, but it took 10 years before they became national stars with an instrumental cover of The In Crowd, which became a hit when it was released back in 1965. And of course, Ramsey Lewis won one of his the first of his 3 Grammys, and you can hear the song kind of softly playing in the background. The In Crowd, very popular song. It became what was now known as a crossover hit, along with Hang On Sloopy and Wade in the Water, which those songs again resonated with musical lovers from all backgrounds, not just the jazz aficionados. And and so it goes on. Now, he also shared that there were various members of his Ramsey Lewis trio over the years, which included Maurice White. Now, you know that name, right? He was on the drums in the Ramsey Lewis trio, but he eventually left Ramsey to start Earth, Wind, and Fire. Yes, yes, yes. But he stayed in touch. They stayed connected, and he eventually went back to Ramsey Lewis and helped him produce this song, which you guys know I really, really love. Let me see if I can pull it up real quick for you. Um, Where is it? Right here. This one I played a lot when I was on radio. And of course, I don't own rights to any of these songs, but this one's Sun Goddess. He collaborated with Maurice White of Earth, Wind, and Fire, actually the whole band, Earth, Wind, and Fire, on this particular hit. All right, and so he also, Ramsey, collaborated with other artists in his genre, including the late jazz vocalist Nancy Wilson, and including that 1984 hit, The Two of Us. Now, I recently read an article that talked about the fact that Ramsey Lewis was working on the release of a new CD and of the Beatles classics. It's called the Beatles Songbook. And it was released, I believe, last Friday, September 23rd. It's a solo piano CD, which is the first volume of recordings that was taken from his pandemic live stream series. I think it was called Saturday Saloon or Salon. And so now it's being released. And so I'm sure you can go to his website to get more information on how you can actually purchase it. But I certainly enjoyed the times that I've had in the past with Ramsey Lewis, and just learning from him and listening to his stories, and send and offer up condolences to his family, friends, and fans. All right. And so, in other news, there's another story that really caught my eye, and that is, of course, the recent release of Sydney. Sydney. Yeah. And I know some of you are saying, well, what is Sydney, Marilyn? What is it? Well, it's an incredible documentary portrait of the late, great Sidney Poitier. And of course, the film surveys his films, his life story, and accomplishments as an iconic actor, artist, and activist who, of course, forever changed what it means to be Black in America. And of course, the producer is none other than Miss Oprah Winfrey. She produced this revealing documentary that honors his legendary life. Now, Sydney opened at the Gene Siskel Film Center in Chicago last Friday on the 23rd of September, and will play for 1 week only, exclusive to the Film Center. Now, you can go to the Gene Siskel Film Center website for more information and to get your tickets. And well, here's a story. Yeah, the whispers. The whispers are true. What whispers are you speaking of, Marilyn? Well, you know those whispers we've been hearing, right? You know what I'm talking about? Well, here it is. The NFL, Rock Nation, which is the entertainment agency that oversees the Super Bowl halftime shows, and of course, Miss Rihanna herself took to social media to confirm that she will, in fact, be the halftime show for the upcoming Super Bowl. That's going to be on Sunday, February the 13th or 12th, 2023. And of course, the game and the performance will take place at the State Farm Stadium in Glendale, Arizona. Now, you know, Rihanna is not only a multiple award-winning entertainer, she has successfully mastered the world of business that has, of course, elevated her to billionaire status. And that's thanks to her ventures, including Fenty Beauty, Savage Fenty, and her most recent venture, which is the Fenty Skin in 2021. And so let's all hold on, hang tight, sit tight, and see how that show turns out. All right, and so let's go ahead and jump into Cafe Talk. And so, as I said at the top of the show, I emailed about it, I blogged about it on yesterday, and the Cafe Talk question is, what is your it? You know that expression when people say, sometimes you just have to put it out there. And of course, meaning the it being whatever it is that you want to accomplish or achieve or overcome in your life, you know, in your career, your job, education, your spiritual walk, your marriage, other relationships, your heart's desires. What is it? Put it out there to the universe and speak it. Now, of course, you know, some people choose not to be specific about their it in a public manner, and that's okay. So, you know, you just, during your prayer time, your devotional time, your meditation time, speak it out, say it out, and then just watch God work work it, right? Right? All right. And so I shared my it in the email and in the blog, and it was pretty generalized. It's just that, my it right now, my focus right now, I have other focuses, but my main most profound focus is to just continue to have success in everything that I do. And I'm putting it out there, and I know that the universe is gonna, work and make it happen, and lead and guide me, and direct my and order my steps so that it will be. And so that's our cafe talk. Again, I'd love to hear you chime in either in the comment section under this video on YouTube, or of course on the various social media platforms. I'd love to hear from you. All right, folks, that's it. Let's wrap it up. Let's just review the word for the month of September one more time. And that word is salubrious, meaning healthy, giving health, and being restorative, or restoring things. All right, salubrious. And as always, I'm getting ready for the Christmas giveaway, October, November, December. And of course, if you want to promote your business, your service, your product, your brand, or contribute to what we do, just send an email to producer@marilynscafesociety.com. Remember also to check out the website, marilynscafesociety.com. You can get connected with me on my social media platforms from there. Also, there's a link to the blog. And of course, the YouTube is always posted there as well. And be sure to like, subscribe, and share the YouTube. I appreciate it so much. Listen, if you want to be a part of the email club, Mondays with Marilyn, just send an email to marilynscafesociety@yahoo.com. And I'll be sure to just tag you on, and you'll get once a week on a Monday a nice email from me. Okay. All right, before we go, let's look at what love is. And love is manifesting your it. All right, everybody, if you don't do anything else for the rest of the week, be sure that you live, you laugh, and you love. As always, it's a pleasure and a privilege, and we'll talk again on the next show. Peace.